Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In a world that celebrates perfection, we rarely hear about the challenges, fears, and crossroads that successful leaders grapple with across work and life. Uncomfortable Growth Uncut shines a light on their personal story and the critical human skills we all need today to turn trials into triumph. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, everyone. I am here with the delightful Amber Scott, who I met through the Marketing Academy, and we just found that we clicked. We had a great catch up as part of that, and we've remained in touch. So Amber is the Chief Client Officer at Edelman and a fabulous person. So I'm very excited to have her on the show today. Welcome, Amber.
Thanks, Rowena. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. So I'm just going to jump straight in. What is your uncomfortable growth story that you would like to share today?
Well, my uncomfortable growth story is quite it was quite a life-altering event that I went through. And I think most people can relate to this. In fact, everyone can relate to this because I think everyone has a mum. But I lost my mum when I lived in London. I moved to London after I finished uni, and was there, started my PR career in London in 2004. And while I was over there, my mum became very ill with mental health issues, depression, really severe depression. And she ended up taking her life in 2010. So I was sort of really
Wow.
in the relatively early stages of my career. I was kind of an account manager in the PR world back in London.
You were young. I mean, you were not a child, but you were young.
27, I think I was, something like that, 27, 28. Yeah, so had a few years of independence over there, building my career, forging my
Uh-huh.
path, and really I was really enjoying London because London's a great city, and I
Uh-huh.
was getting the most out of London being an Australian over there, working in
Hmm.
industry, all of the great things that the industry can give you.
Hmm.
And my world just came crashing down overnight with one phone call from my dad, saying that mum had taken her own life. And that was in January 2010. And I went into free fall.
I
I
can't
was what
even I can't even imagine what that would be like because I mean it's your mum. She's
yeah.
been your mum your whole life, obviously, and I'm sure she was an incredible person, but to know that she was in such a difficult place that she did that. I mean, how did you process that?
I don't think I did. And I think it's taken me, so it's been 15 years, over 15 years now since she
Hmm.
passed. And I think each year, and as I go through different milestones in my life,
Mm.
I'm reflecting on that. At the time, you're in such grief that it just grips you. You can't really reflect too much in the moment. But
Hmm. Hmm.
even just this year, Mother's Day's just been, I pulled out some letters she'd sent me from 2004 to 2009, when I was over there. So we obviously had phones, but she liked
Yeah.
writing, and that in itself was lovely to have these letters with me. But I hadn't managed to bring myself to open these letters for a good, 10, 15 years.
Mm.
I could, and
Wow.
I was reflecting on why could I not bring
Mm.
myself to open these letters? It wasn't even a conscious decision. I just held on to them, and I think
Mm.
maybe it was just. I just couldn't rationalize what had happened, or to really sort of dive back into that time from so long ago. I think I've just been so busy with life as well, with
Yeah.
bringing a family into the world and starting
Mm.
really kind of focusing on my career over here too. But I think it was so traumatic, quite honestly, so traumatic that I
Mm.
just almost put the shutters up and the
Yeah.
and the walls up. and
Yep.
just became, a lot of people say you're resilient, you're so strong. It's funny when you're in that moment how it's either kind of almost fight or flight or just sort of you either sink or swim. But
Mm.
I just went from, and I think if I reflect on 27, 28-year-old me to now, I was so dependent on my partner at the time, on friends and on other people, and it thrust me into this place where I needed to be reliant on myself. And so part of this uncomfortable growth story is that happened, followed by a redundancy where I was working in my job. And there
Mm-hmm.
was also, it was coinciding with with kind of the tail end of the global financial crisis too, because it was 2010 and the
Yep.
company I was working for that were having some challenges. So yeah, redundancy, which just sort of was a double whammy on what I was already
Massive double
struggling with.
whammy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Because
just
I think your immediate family, or at least from my experience, your immediate family is such an anchor, but one that you just kind of assume will always be there, because they've always been there,
yeah,
right? And so that's a massive anchor. And then our role or our job is often where we're spending the most time currently, during our waking hours. It's 5 days versus a weekend. It's
yeah.
waking hours, the majority of our waking hours. And so two big anchors just kind of like obliterated.
Absolutely. And yes, so there was the two big anchors and there was a third anchor. So I think all three anchors, one being mum, and I think everyone, as you say, there's a connection to your mother and whatever relationship you have that
Yeah.
connection back to the person that birthed you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Second being your job, absolutely. And I'm one of those people that has, a real I tend to just throw everything I have into my work. And that's
Mm.
been, we'll probably come on to that later, but that's been my own challenge that I need to find balance in that because I love what I do and I love the industry that I work in. But I really did, if I reflect on how I coped at the time, it was to work even harder,
Yeah.
to work longer hours, and then to go home and really drink wine to, to
To
speak
numb.
my mind. Um,
Yeah.
and that didn't serve me at all, just doing that. But no one said, hey, just stop,
Yeah.
and take time and
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
coping, right?
it's
Because
coping.
when you're at work and busy, you're distracted, like distracted from thinking about your mum, is what I meant. So you're so busy that you kind of have this kind of mental reprieve from
Exactly.
from the emotional sadness and grief, etc. And yeah, and then, of course, how do you cope with the emotions when you're not busy? And, that's where anything that numbs can become a very easy habit because there is so much emotion, but you can't just get rid of it.
Yeah, crutch. Exactly. And the crutches that and ultimately not serving you or helping you, but you don't realize it at the
Mm.
time. So those two things, those two experiences were really hard. And then about 11 months later, my marriage broke down. And
Oh
it
my
was it
goodness.
was a challenging situation in itself because I got married at 23. I thought at the time I was old enough, wise enough. I knew myself.
Mm-hmm.
23 was a perfect age to get married. It really wasn't. I didn't have really any idea of who I was
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. And if I reflect myself, and as I said, I was very reliant on other people too. I didn't really have a strong sense of self at that point. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it was too much for our relationship, what I'd been through and the way I responded and how I coped and or didn't cope.
Mm.
Being the operative word, I think was too much. And so that was challenging because there was also a betrayal in that marriage breakdown. And I fought hard to try and keep that third anchor or pillar that you talk about.
Mm.
I fought against all odds to keep that and it didn't happen. I was kind of swimming upstream. And it was later in life when I went and got counseling that the counselor actually said to me, it's not surprising you tried to stay despite the betrayal because he was your family in
Right.
London. You'd lost your
Uh-huh.
mum, you'd lost your
Uh-huh.
job, you'd lost your, it was the one thing you had left.
Yeah. And also you I don't know, this is how I kind of emotionally can imagine is you're also wanting to stop everything from falling away.
Yep.
It's like I need to keep this. Like I've already had two things ripped away. I need to keep this. I need to stop this, this horror period of my life because it really is horrible.
Yeah, have one constant that is
Yeah.
your safe zone. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Your dependable zone
I
that's going to be
depend
there.
on zone. Yeah, and so the entire sort of floor of my life kind of came out from under me with all of that. I did have some wonderful friends and still wonderful friends in London who helped pick me up, get me a new job, helped set me on my feet, reinforced that I was had a sense of self-worth and I was strong and I was capable.
Hmm.
And so I did pick up the pieces, albeit it wasn't as straightforward and as linear as anyone would
Yeah.
like. It was
Yeah.
definitely a real up and down process. And at one point
Mm.
I just went, okay, time out. I need time out from my career. I need to go and do my Eat, Pray, Love and go for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I didn't do Italy, but I did Asia, I did India,
Yeah.
and then I did come home to Australia because I thought, really with that loss, there was I was being pulled back into
Yeah.
the land, my dad being back here, my
Yeah.
mum, my granny back here, and I wanted to be at home at that point. So I was
Yeah.
fortunate that the job that I worked at the time in London gave me that space, that 12 weeks, to just to do that, which was incredible. Um, but I then sort of had resolved in my mind that I was going to come home. I just had to
Yeah.
kind of make that happen. And as is always the case with life, things never, as I said, go linear. And
They
I met
never go
I was
linear.
I was planning to be single to come home, but then I ended up meeting a British guy who's now my husband,
Uh-huh.
which was great. So, and we moved back here in 2016. So I landed back in Australia, not having worked in the industry here. I'd done 10 years in London,
Yeah.
and was, okay, new challenge. This is my new challenge, my uncomfortable growth of moving back to the motherland, but yet to an industry that I did not know in Australia and
Hmm.
I had some interesting expectations, or kind of, if I reflect on it, I thought Australia would be, backwards, not creative,
Easier.
but a bit easier. Exactly, a little bit, not as, positively challenging in terms of the kind of work. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I did a bit of freelance work before I landed at Edelman. I've been at Edelman ever since, but I mean, that in itself has been
Yeah.
brilliant in terms of just the growth and opportunity I've had within Edelman too. But I
Mm.
think, yeah, 15 years on, I have in that time since being back had two children.
Hmm.
And part of my uncomfortable growth story back here is that um, I mental health obviously was a factor for my mum. It's a factor
Yeah.
in my family. And
Hmm.
I hadn't suffered with mental health until I had my first child. And then I got really bad postnatal depression and
Hmm.
anxiety. And that manifested in sleeplessness. I couldn't sleep. I had a huge anxiety around being able to sleep. And, as we all
Hmm.
know, if you can sleep, you can cope better with
Yes.
not
Yes.
coping.
Yes.
Um, and and that was scary. It was the first time where I went,
Mm.
I, for the first time, and it was almost like it happened overnight. I don't feel myself. I feel like a light in me has gone out. It's like it's
Mm.
extinguished. It's like, that kind of fire that pushes you, that gets you
Yeah.
motivated to get up in the morning, to go and
Hmm.
achieve things that are gone, are completely gone. And
Mm.
it was scary because I had at that time, and like we were talking about before, work is a distraction. It gives you
Yes.
something to kind of focus on. When you're with a baby and you don't
Mm.
have that distraction and you're there with your thoughts, it's kind of really confronting and really scary. And I was
Hmm.
going through that, going, I just want to be back at work because I don't want to think about this. I don't want to have to face this.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did resolve in myself was to go and get help as soon as I realized I had a problem. And
Yeah.
Gidget Foundation was amazing in that. They're incredible in terms of what
Yeah.
they
What
do.
support
And
you've got.
yeah, and I had 10 sessions there in North Sydney and went through a lot. And like you really kind of dive back into the formative years of your life, your family,
Yeah.
mum, the
Mm-hmm.
challenges. I went through everything I've just talked about. And you know what you realize is when you become a mum, or when you go through that physical and life change, your
Mm.
body keeps the score and like it catches
Mm-hmm.
up with you,
Mm-hmm.
like it or not.
Mm-hmm. It's still
But
there. Yeah,
it's still
like we
there, yeah.
internalize that, like now they've got more research and understanding, but we hold it. It's still there. It's not gone. And it comes
Exactly.
back, when we least expect it to. It's not a linear thing where you go, okay, that's where I can release that, trauma or stress. It's like, no, it comes out when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, I just I just was quite frankly petrified that I
Mm,
was going to end up like mum.
of
You know,
course.
that point where she was in such a dark place that she thought the only option for her was to take her life.
Yeah.
I could see that. Not that I was suicidal, but I could see how if you
Dark it
take
was.
that, yeah, if you take that like passion for life out, how you become just, yeah, you just become helpless. So that was a really scary, dark time. And there was a lot kind of tied up in that. I had a big skin cancer on my head, and I'd had that cut out at 10 weeks postpartum. I think that probably contributed as well. I had a really tough birth, that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
all layered on top of each other, it was challenging. And
Mm.
I did the work with this counseling, but first mat leave, I just couldn't wait to get back to work. I couldn't wait to get back to what I knew, what I loved, kind of
Uh-huh. And
getting,
find that light because it sounds
yeah.
like work had been a big part of your light.
It had, and it really supported me. And I think
Yeah.
this is another thing that through my journey, 20 plus years in this industry, is I've had really strong, particularly female supporters along the
Mm.
way in London
Mm-hmm.
over here, like just championing and supporting and lifting up. And that was, I think, if I reflect on my own journey, my career journey, that has
Mm.
been. They say that leaders in your life either make or break your career, and you'll have one or two good leaders if you're lucky that really help propel you forward. And I was fortunate to have at least two so
Mm-hmm.
far in my career. And so I came back into work and I did share what I'd been going through, and they were great with it. And I was promoted as I came back into work, which I think is a great thing if businesses, not only support mum's transition back into work, but also give them more opportunity if they're ready for
Mm-hmm.
it, which I definitely was. So I was really lucky. And then when I did have the second maternity leave, I was obviously worried it might happen again. It didn't. I
Mm.
prepared myself for it, but I really enjoyed it the second time around because
Mm.
it wasn't that kind of joy wasn't stolen from me like it was the first time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I really feel, and I have a real passion for working mums and mums returning to work, and just that, what we go through physiologically,
Mm-hmm.
physically, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just, it's almost like you can just, if I think back to, you're ticking a box, okay, I've got to this point in my career, I've
Mm.
gotten married, I've got the man of my dreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next thing is kids, tick box,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it is so life altering having
Mm-hmm.
children. And then and what it kind of made me realize, if we come back to what I was talking about at the beginning, which is my mum, is, you know,
Mm.
I just craved being able to talk to my mum about what was I like, what was my sister like, how did you deal with maternity leave, what were your challenges. I was kind of robbed of that, and she was robbed of that great opportunity
Mm.
to connect with her grandchildren as well, which I'm
Mm.
aware of. But so I would say, like, cherish your mum if she's still alive, because one day she won't be.
Mm.
But I do think that I the women, and we've had quite a lot of conversations around this. I'm a part of Global Women in PR, GWPR, which is a special interest group of CAPRA in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of the group that helped launch it here
Mm-hmm.
about 18 months ago. We've talked about the fact that women in this industry don't get enough support.
Mm-hmm.
Even with perimenopause or menopause, or like women are working later in the industry, and
Mm-hmm.
whether it's mental health, or postpartum, or then the kind of
Mm-hmm.
the next phase of your life, which is perimenopause and menopause, it just doesn't feel like there's enough talked about still.
Yeah, well, and it's like so many pieces to your uncomfortable growth story. I'm just pinging around in my head like so many pieces. But let's just even start with um workplace support, right?
Mhm.
So, and one of the things I love now, which wasn't really a thing when I had my two kids, is the fact that there's parental leave. So men can also take time off or take months off to be the primary caregiver. And and I think that that is really important because it's a completely different world. And you do feel like you've split yourself in half when you go from this, this job, particularly if you loved it. I loved my jobs always, I also had that light from the job. I thrived on it. I was doing really well. Um, and so you go from this exciting life, and of course you want to be a mother, like most people would make that as a conscious choice. I do want to be a mother. But the reality of that time when you're first at home and, in those early months where there's hardly any sleep, and I can only imagine what it was like to get no sleep in your case, but you're really isolated. And as much as you love your child, it can be like such a different world. It's like stepping off Venus onto Mars. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Because I remember when I was on my maternity leave and David, my husband, he had a really full-on job at the time. And he was at Bankwest and it was around the GFC and things were crazy. And he'd come home exhausted. And I'm like, oh, what happened in your day? And I'm like, what happened? What exciting things? How did the board meeting go? How was this? How was that? What about that, that opportunity that was happening in a partnership, blah, blah, whatever it was. And he'd look at me and he's like, I'm really tired. And I'd be there going, yes, yes, but I don't have any of this. I'm
Yeah.
I want to have some because all I've been doing all day, and I shouldn't say all, but what I've been doing all day is trying to have a shower, probably having to have a second one because there was vomit somewhere along the line. Um, Maybe getting to some shops to pick up a few things with a newborn, which is also very challenging with a newborn, and bathing, changing, fussing babies,
Yeah.
breastfeeding. That was my day. And it was at home and it was monotonous. Like I remember saying to him one day, if I have to put that same fork in the dishwasher one more time, I'm just gonna scream. Like I'm gonna, gonna lose it. And so I don't think that we appreciate how extremely different those worlds are until we're in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is great now that we can that there's parental leave for men, and they can also experience it. I've certainly have friends whose partners
Hmm.
have gone, great, I can just go and have lunch and have
Yeah.
coffees and go to the gym, and like the baby will just sit there, and like the expectation versus the reality are very, very different. And they're like, when can I go back to work? When
Yeah.
when can we
Exactly. So way easier to go to work.
where
Not
is it to go to work?
only,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
only do you get your own coffee, you get to go to the
yeah,
bathroom on your own when you want. you get to have interesting conversations. And then on top of that, they pay you. I mean, it's
I know. Yeah, interesting events, exactly. So, no, it's really interesting, and I think the world is changing. Like even
Mm,
post-COVID, and kind of if I think about having my firstborn pre-COVID and then my second-born
mm,
post-COVID. Pre-COVID,
mhm,
I'd be probably getting up from my desk at sort of 6:30. I only lived over the bridge at Kirribilli,
mhm,
but I would just make it home for like bedtime or bath time, and that was
mhm.
every day of the week. So I saw my son a lot less. And then post-COVID, where there's flexibility, I might do more
Mhm.
work early morning or evening, but I've got time with the kids over
Yeah.
their, when they're back home. And anyway, so it's just really it's really interesting in a few years how it's
Mm,
changed so much. And
mm. But I
I
think
just
your point too on the support, because say for example, with your second, you didn't have postpartum depression, but with your first you did. And you just don't know when your hormones are going
yeah,
crazy and there are so many variables. You may have mental health in your family. A lot of people do it because a lot of it is genetics.
yeah,
Um, Even if you've never had any symptoms before, it doesn't mean that you won't. And
yeah,
just being able to recognize that this is real and if it's your reality, it's
yeah.
incredibly tough and incredibly different to if you don't have it.
And I think as well, there's this expectation almost from society, and I heard it, oh, you've got a young baby, you must be loving being at home and just spending time with it. And I almost felt guilty. I'm like, why do I just, as soon as my husband walked out the door, I'd burst into tears, or I'd just be like, I'd be so petrified of being on my own with this baby, because I'm like, I should be enjoying spending time with Leo, my son,
Mhm.
but I don't. And what's wrong with me? And like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that in itself, you're kind of rationalizing all of these things
Mm-hmm.
um, that society sort of expects you to feel or do or be at that point in that role. And I think that's what I'm passionate about with, the team that I work with, for those that come back from mat leave, is like, give yourself time, listen to your body, don't
Mm-hmm.
listen to what society or nurses or healthcare professionals, obviously they've got a role, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
professionals for a reason, but only you know your own body, and also
Yes.
how like even I had to do bottle feeding instead of breastfeeding, and that I had a whole
Mm-hmm.
whole load of anxiety around that because I felt like a failure. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's changing a bit now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think we need to, as a society, wrap our arms around women who are professional working mums and trying to juggle more and
Mm-hmm.
more, which we are, but it's still a journey. And I still do
Mm-hmm.
think there's labels put on women and expectations put on women. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
last GWPR events we had, we were talking about the fact that there's still, women are still the caregivers. Like we're still the ones, and the unfortunately the gender pay gap
Mm-hmm.
is not going away, because we're often, women writ large in society are taking on caregiving roles which pay less and are not
Mm-hmm.
as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and obviously motherhood, you don't get paid anything, but
And it's the hardest
no,
job.
and it's the hardest job, exactly. Yeah. But it does, like, because I went through marketing academy last year, and
Uh-huh.
they really encourage you to just take the mask off and reveal, the challenges
Yeah.
you've been through, your learning journey, and it's really about leadership too. And I really drew parallels between becoming a mum and the lessons learned for leadership too. Gives you
Mm-hmm.
it really, with motherhood, you have to be incredibly patient. You have to
Mm-hmm.
just roll with the punches. It's, there's so many learnings from motherhood that you can apply to leadership in a way, and vice versa. I think
Yeah, I
it's really,
definitely agree. It's definitely like a master's degree in empathy, and it's not about you, right? It's about them, and so
picking them
you,
up. Yeah,
yeah, and you're not in control. You can't control it either. So which
exactly.
links in then to leadership lessons around change and lots of disruption that may like you can't control it.
Yeah,
So how do you figure it out
that's
along
right.
the way?
And then when I came back from maternity leave, second time round with
Mm.
Mia, my daughter, I was fortunate coming back into the workforce second time round that my boss at the time said, "How about you run the business for me for 4 months while we wait for our new CEO to come in?" And I just went, I remember coming out of that call because I was about 3 weeks away from coming back to work. And my husband went, "Are
Mm.
you okay? You're like white as a sheep." And I said, "I've just been asked to run the business for Edelman for the next 4 months." He's like, "Well, what do you think? Like, we can do it, can't we? Like, you can do it." And he was fully supportive, but I just remember it's kind of that, the imposter syndrome going, why me?
Why
Am I
now?
really the right person? Why now? I've got a 9-month-old baby. I wasn't the most senior person, the most experienced person in the business, but I was just fortunate. This is one of the women that I mentioned before, that
Mhm.
Michelle, who was just incredibly supportive and uplifting and enabling of capability and championing women. Just I think in general across the industry, there's so many women I know that have benefited from her
Mm.
her leadership. But she just believed in me, and I think having someone that believes in you and in what you can do and sees your capability, and it may not be again on paper everything that one would expect of but just could
Mhm.
see because I said, "Surely you need X, Y, and Z." I can't remember exactly what she said. "Amber, I know what I need, and I need this right now, which is what you have in spades." So I said,
Mhm.
"I will do it." And it was a challenge.
Mhm.
That was an uncomfortable growth situation if there was ever one, but I learned so much. And I think I felt I had to prove to myself and to others that I could do it. And like I managed it and we got there. I'm not going to say it was just a walk in the park. It wasn't. We needed to get extra help with the kids and things like that, but
Mhm.
I have no regrets, and it was a really, really great opportunity for me. So I would just say, from my own experience, if
Mm.
opportunities like that come along, if you can make it happen, lean in, because you may be like, there may be 1,000 reasons as to why you shouldn't do it, but
Mhm.
usually the universe rewards action and change and
Mhm.
leaning
Mhm.
in. So that was, I just felt incredibly grateful to have that opportunity.
Mm. And I
Yeah.
love what you said too about, this leader, I think Michelle, you said her name was,
Yeah.
um, just also being able to articulate why she knows you can do this. And I think that is probably the most powerful thing that a leader can do for someone, because having someone else articulate that, and there was a reason why, like she wasn't just being nice because she liked Amber. She was like, this is what I need. This is what you have. I know you can do this, but are you ready to lean in, to use your own words? And, you know, throughout my career and also life, so outside of work, I think it's that piece to be able to articulate to someone else what you see is such a powerful thing, and it's such a gift.
It is.
Because we probably wouldn't have got there on our own, or we may have fallen back into our imposter syndrome, or made 20 different excuses as to why it's not the right time or not possible. And, we're never necessarily the best judges of ourselves because we're with ourselves 100% of the time. And, I love that example. And I think for everyone in leadership roles, doing a little bit more of that, you
Agree.
know, would be so powerful. It's such a big motivator. And it's not about money or anything like that. It's about taking the time just to articulate what do you see in this person? What's special? And they'll still have development areas. It's not only saying the positives, it's still being able to give balanced feedback for development, but what is unique and special and helping them to realize it for themselves, I think is just so powerful.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think that's the true hallmark of a great leader, is being able to bring out the best in people, recognize those talents,
Mhm.
harness them, elevate them,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And I think from hearing from like I've been fortunate to create lots of connections from Marketing Academy and just hear from leaders and hear from experts in
Mm.
the industry that the kind of the thematic that exists across all of those conversations I've had is really those leaders have not tried to do it all. They've actually got
Mm-hmm.
a team around them that have got those capabilities and
Mm-hmm.
respective qualities that where they may have black spots or spots where they can't,
Mm-hmm.
they can't do everything. So I think you're only going to get to that top level of leadership if you surround yourself with the people that with the capabilities and the roles that
Yeah.
are going to help you
Yeah.
succeed. And
Which is the value of diversity, right? And
yeah,
having people with different skills that, can really bring them and contribute to the broader team. That's the 1 + 1 = 5. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. You've just got so many different hard things that have happened for you. And I just wanted to, I guess, ask, looking back on that journey, um, how has that taught you or helped you to think about, what if something else hard happens in the future? How do you approach it? Because we all know that there's going to be curveballs. There's ups and there's downs. There's always going to be curveballs, but you've had to deal with a lot of curveballs and hard curveballs. So how has that impacted the way you think about the future?
It's a really great question. I think um ultimately, because I remember people saying it at the time, and I just went, oh, yeah, okay. They back in London, take care of yourself, put yourself first. And it just felt like an incredibly selfish thing to think about. But you have to take care of yourself. And I think you realize that as a mother. If you're going through a really hard time, don't lose yourself in it and try
Mhm.
and, to try and really prioritize the things that are going to help you get through it, like that are
Mhm.
not going to deplete you, that are going to fill your bucket, whether that's exercise or eating well, or even just surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to lift you up. So taking care of myself, and that's also bringing through, with motherhood too, because you can lose yourself in that.
Mm.
But also to not be afraid, because I think in my 20s, you're so focused on pleasing people and just wanting to be liked by everyone and to not
Mhm.
rub anyone up the wrong way, and I definitely think I
Mhm.
was that people pleaser. Is don't be afraid to part ways with the things or the people that don't serve you, and to be able to step
Mhm.
back and recognize that it's okay just to not have those relationships. It's reason, season, lifetime. People come into your life for
Mhm.
a reason or a season or a lifetime. They might be there with you
Mhm.
for a lifetime, but that was at the time a hard thing to grapple with. But now I'm at peace with that around relationships and where you invest your time and things. So I think that was a real learning. And I think if I was to talk to my younger self, I would say
Mm.
that. And I think being the driver rather than the passenger, I think I was just in this autopilot of,
Mm.
of just things would happen to me rather than me affecting change back in those days. And yeah, I have been fortunate to have things land in my plate, for want of a better term. But taking that, and I think this has really been for me the key takeout of the last 12 months and going through the Marketing Academy, is like, be the driver, not the passenger. Kind of know where
Mhm.
you're going, know your destination, enjoy the journey, but don't
Mhm.
be afraid, and make provisions for the twists and turns that are going to happen inevitably, that life will throw at you on the way. And
Mm.
to to be okay with, you know, that journey not being linear and that journey not being exactly how you'd envisaged it.
Mm.
Probably they're the things I would say. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's so good. And even, now you're a mother and, you obviously lost your mum. There just must be so many connections or associations and things that come to you, like you were talking before. I know it's a horrible situation to have to be dealt in life. But what's something something that's come out of that experience that you see as meaningful and something that you can take forward?
I like to think that, if you're going through hardship and it's hard to see it at the time, but
Mm,
it it it's going to serve a bigger purpose, both for your own self in like propelling you out of a really comfortable zone you might be in, but
mm,
also to help others in the future. And it's been 15 years since I went through most of that. Um, but I've been fortunate to, I think, almost serendipitously have whether it's colleagues or friends or people, peers that have gone through, whether it's mental health challenges, postpartum
mm.
challenges, relationship breakups, mother, like just deaths, that I can actually genuinely connect with that and
Yeah,
offer my perspective, but also just
yeah,
be an ear and to go, I can totally empathize. I can't just
yes,
hear you, but I can actually truly put myself in your shoes and empathize. And I think you can't, you can't pretend that. You have to have
no,
gone through that. You have to have lived that
hmm,
to really have that empathy. So I like to think that I come from a place of empathy when people choose to
mm,
confide in me. And I've had that happen a number of times. And like, I think that's a gift to be able to go, okay, it was terrible at the time, but I'm able to at least offer some advice for what it's worth, or even
yeah,
just a hope. Because if that person's in
yeah,
that at that moment
yeah,
going, I remember that at the time, I was like, I remember saying to a friend, I said, I don't think I'm ever going to meet anyone else when my relationship was breaking down. And I don't think there was kind of these sort of really self-limiting beliefs I had on
mm,
myself. But being able to say to others, this is really hard right now, but you'll get through
hmm,
it and
hmm,
life will get better. And this is just
mm,
winter season you're in right now. It'll turn into spring and then it'll be summer. But to offer that perspective, I think that would be one of the big things that's come out of it for me. And it's also forced me to be more self-aware, I think, with that sort of taking the wheel, and taking control of things a bit more. But
mm,
I'm on a continuous learning journey too. So
mm,
I'm also at this stage, honestly, Rowena, where I'm early 40s. I'm starting to get perimenopausal symptoms. And I actually think what mum went through, she was smack bang in menopause. It's kind of scary. She obviously had mental health challenges in her lifetime, and also, as you said, with the family history. But I do honestly believe that
mm,
some of it was hormonal for her and
mm,
menopausal, and it's crazy when you hear the stats around the number of menopausal women, perimenopause and menopausal women that are going through mental health challenges.
mm, mhm,
But they're given a pill for it, or
mhm,
antidepressant pill,
mhm,
rather than actually. And I've been doing a lot of listening and learning and listening to podcasts from experts on. There's a few experts out there on menopause, just saying how under under serviced the area, like underfunded. I think it's something like
mhm.
15 million US dollars globally is spent on research around menopause in a
Oh, wow.
billion
Nothing.
dollar healthcare industry. Like it's not even touching the sides, but
Yeah.
50% of the world goes through it. And
Yeah.
this is just like it's really. I'm getting my hormones tested now because I just want to
Mm,
know where my body's at, and I'm a little
mm,
way off, I think, from menopause. But for a lot of some women,
mhm,
perimenopause can last 7 to 10 years, and then you go into
mhm,
menopause. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit scared of getting to
mm,
menopause and having the mental health challenges that mum had. And because like you say, you don't choose it. Your body will
mhm,
kind of roll into that or not.
mm.
But I can at least try and get ahead of it and try and grow
Yes.
my body better.
And
And
and also know that it's not your fault. Like,
yeah.
you're not kind of going crazy. Because I think, when I was talking to my mum about this, and she's now early 80s, and she said back in her day, if women complained about any sort of symptoms like that, they were told just to, take a aspro and lie down. But there was no acknowledgement. And, and she said like some days she felt she was going crazy.
Yeah.
But
I,
it wasn't a thing to talk about, even though every woman goes through it.
yeah.
And I think that that can also lead to so much pushing down and suppressing of the real symptoms, like mental health symptoms, which are a health need, not a source of shame or embarrassment, or, you're not crazy. And, there's so much more data now too around the link between hormonal changes and mental health. And I think we've all kind of known it, seen it as teenagers, but we make allowances for that because they're teenagers.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
there's like, having a baby, and postpartum, and there's perimenopause and menopause. I mean, women do have this ride with their hormones throughout life, not just as a teenager. And that has a direct and massive effect on so many things, but in particular, mental health.
Yeah, exactly. And mental health is obviously a big issue for us in society.
Mm.
But I think there's also, from what I've heard as well, it's kind of, rather than treating the whole person, we're treating bits
Mm.
of the person,
Yes.
and I think that's part of the problem with modern day medicine,
Yes.
that it's like you've got this issue or this issue. Let's not look at the whole body and the
Yes.
whole person. Let's just
Yeah.
look at that one isolated thing. So yeah, it's a continuous learning journey. As I said, I'm going on around and just reflecting back at this point, because I'm not too far off how old mum was when she passed.
Mm.
She was about probably 10 years. She was early 50s, which is really young to die.
Really young.
She had so much of her life left to live.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that was taken away from her. And I'm
Hmm.
just, I just want to make sure that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least in this context, you're so aware of it and you know how to ask for help. I think that was one of the beautiful things that came out of, your experience postpartum as well. You did ask for help. Mhm. And that takes courage. That takes huge courage.
Maybe, but I think that if I think back to 15 years ago, there wasn't anywhere near the resources or support of Beyond
Mm.
Blue or Gidget, or like
Mhm.
a lot of those things came about up post mum, and probably like you're saying with your mum,
Mm.
your proxy is really like, what is society giving you? And if society isn't serving up, okay, more education or more support,
Mhm.
you're kind
Mhm.
of just left with, okay, this is just my issue that I need to deal with.
Yeah,
And
this is just about me. It's my fault.
hey, yeah, yeah. So I'm lucky that I'm living in an age where there's more support, becoming more
Yeah,
support for that sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, well, I've got a couple of quick fire questions for us to finish with. What are the top three things you've learned about yourself in recent years?
Great question. Okay, so I would say I'm someone that by default likes sort of not instant outcomes, but to kind of go from A to B quickly. I sort of push myself, and I think accepting that healing can be a slow process. That healing, even that healing, is happening to me now, as I was saying, like
Mm.
going through the letters and the work that I'm doing just around like myself with my mum. It's not ended. It's not like a
Yeah,
combined time in my life that I close off and move on from. So
yeah,
accepting that, um, yeah, has been eye-opening. Um, this again comes from Marketing Academy, was just hit at the perfect time for me, the scholarship, because I was coming out of the just sort of that early motherhood, kids sort of overwhelming time where I could actually reinvest into myself. And I think Marketing Academy really does encourage you to connect, network,
yeah.
give back. So baking for me, what I've learned is to just make space for continued and intentional learning, and kind of whether
Mm.
it's micro learning, podcast here, book there,
Mhm.
a mentorship session somewhere else, you know, like just trying to fit that in and make space for it because we're
Yeah.
always busy. Like we're busy, busy,
Yeah.
busy. We're a busy society, but that pays dividends. I think I'm already seeing that pay dividends when I'm
Yes.
making space for that and meeting new people and being intentional with networking. And I think I touched on this before, but like motherhood's only been the last sort of 6 years for me. So it's recent, but being a mother and a leader, it's not a perfect journey. And I think when I set up, because I'm, you know, always trying to strive for perfection or strive for the best, it was not a perfect journey, particularly at the beginning, as I said, like I did not cope. And I think having flexibility and openness and just recognizing that in myself, embracing the unknown, and as I said before, rolling with the punches,
Mm.
just taking a step back and kind of, okay, like let's just take this a bit of a day at a time and you know, and not put too much
Mm.
pressure on myself. I think
Yeah.
those are probably the three things for me that I've
Yeah,
learned
they're
about myself.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, they're beautiful. Okay, so last question, which of course has three parts.
Okay. I love three parts. Great.
What is a current fear, a current inspiration, and a current challenge for you at the moment? So we
Okay.
have fear, inspiration, and challenge.
Yep. My fear would probably be fear of standing still or
Mm.
not growing and stretching myself. So this kind of tension or trying to balance having enough mental capacity, availability for myself, my children, and my job and the team that I work with, but
Mm.
also putting myself in that uncomfortable zone to grow
Mm.
and stretch. So like, and also someone said to me the other day, you're in your prime. Like you need to maximize this time, like this window, you know, far out, the clock's ticking. I need to do this. Like just fitting that all in a relatively small window. Albeit we're working along, like we're living longer and
Mm.
working longer. So maybe that window will grow a bit, but there's no growth in the comfort zone. I know that. And it's
Mm.
just, you know, that sweet spot of kind of
Mhm.
getting out of that comfort zone, but also having the time and mental availability. So that'd be the fear.
Mhm.
The inspiration, I have a couple of, so I'm reading this book, Mind Magic,
Huh?
which is really, you've probably heard of it, but it's about manifestation. And that's been hugely inspiring. One of my best friends gave it to me and she said, I think you'll really like this.
Mm.
And it's just been a real source of inspiration in terms of reframing and thinking about
Mm.
things a little differently. So that plus also I love at the moment getting my earpods on, going for a walk and
Mhm.
listening to, I don't know if you've heard of him, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's
Oh, yeah, I
a
haven't.
British doctor, but he has this podcast called Feel Better, Live More. And
Okay.
he has such interesting guests. So like I was touching upon before the menopause, some of those stats that came from an interview that he had. He talks about all parts of the body, from the brain to the physical
Mm.
to the spiritual, to like it's just so interesting the conversations he has. So that's a real source of
Mm.
inspiration for me.
Mm.
Um, Challenges.
Mhm.
Sherilyn, who's founder of Marketing Academy, talked to us about our ikigai, which is the like life's meaning. And so
Mhm.
my ikigai, I'm seeking that out at the moment, and it's a positive challenge. But what I'm really passionate about and what I realized going through that yet last year was I'm passionate about supporting women in domestic violence situations and displaced women, and
Mhm.
just the sheer number of women and children that go through that. So I've been fortunate that one of my mentors from Marketing Academy has connected me with this incredible woman, Louise Edmonds, who's doing something in that space alongside another lady who I've literally just been introduced to this week, called
Mhm.
the Equanimity Project. So she's really about
Mhm.
finding roofs for women, like roof over women's heads, because so many of the shelters are full and it's a
Yes.
real, like the system's broken. So my
Yeah.
ikigai is to lean in and support just some of the existing organizations out there
Yeah.
and really offer what I can within my power
Yes.
to help
Yeah.
them.
You would have
So
such an amazing skill set to be able to help them. You know, your work life will be such a valuable asset to them.
I hope so. I hope so, because it's certainly something I'm passionate about. And yeah, I think that's a like a fresh challenge for me. So I'm excited to forge that path and see how I can help. make
Yeah.
a difference. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Amber, for sharing your uncomfortable growth uncut story. There's so much so much to admire in you as a person, and I just love the way you were just able to share so openly and talk about the real things, because that's really what this podcast is about. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Rowena. It's so great what you're doing with this podcast. I absolutely love it. So it's a pleasure to be part of it, and I hope your listeners have taken something away today.
If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?